Alrighty, so today we are going to take a look at the 7 games that happened on Sunday that finish off match week number 21. And although this week's Heineken rivalry weekend wasn't as crazy as what we saw in the last weekend, there were definitely some interesting storyline that come out of this week and some wildness that did came out of some of these rivalry games. And one of those one is Atlanta versus Orlando City, where, what's interesting about this game is that for 80 minutes of this game did not live up to expectation. I mean, if you thought that this was going to be a wild kind of game, the first 80 minutes was kind of a bit of a snoozer, though. It was kind of heavily in favor of Atlanta because they were pretty much dominating for the whole game. And that I think it was also unsurprising that they kind of dominated the whole game because you knew that as soon as Orlando City got that 1-0 lead, you knew what they were going to do. They're just going to bunker and try to do rote heave mode for the last 80 minutes. And safe to say that did not work out, and that in the last 10 minutes of this game, this basically turned into just an MLS After Dark kind of game, and that it was also turning into the Galese and Woodwork show with how crazy this last 10 minutes was. Now, in the first half, and as I mentioned, Orlando actually got the opening goal just 10 minutes in, as Pereira would score a wonderful free kick to give Orlando City a 1-0 lead. Though, partially the fact that not only it was a great free kick, but yeah, Rios Novos, I don't think he heard the referee blow the whistle for the free kick to be taken because he was still organizing the wall. Like, you can see that he was still near the right side of his post, still organizing the wall, and credit to Mauricio Perez, some heads-up play to realize that Rios Novo wasn't aware that the whistle was blown, and Rios Novo basically let that entire left side of the goal gate be open, and that even though Perez still had to kind of hits that one over the wall and puts it in, he saw that happen, and he basically does that, and yeah, that gives Orlando City a 1-0 lead. And in some way, again, it was a great free kick, but kind of a mistake there for Rios Novos, not knowing the fact that the whistle was already been blown. Now, the chances, though, has been kind of few, despite the fact that, we did get the opening goal of this game. That was really the only shot for the first 15 minutes of this one, and it would be the only shot until we get into the 26th minute when Peretta would blast it wide from long range, and then Cisneros tipped it over, and Atlanta was pushing to try to get the equalizer before halftime. And this is also where we started to see the typical Orlando City bunker, where this has happened so many times this season on the road, and it has to frustrate Orlando City fans of the fact that, I've talked about how I'm always frustrating seeing road heave mode that happen whenever Adrian Heath see his Minnesota team get a 1-0 lead and just bunker and hope to get all 3 points. I think Orlando City fans are probably frustrated with Oscar Pereira too. The fact that, yeah, just because you're up 1-0 on the road doesn't mean you have rights to just kind of bunker the whole game and hope to see a 1-0 victory. And that seems like what was the case for the remaining of this game, because in the second half, Sadic puts it wide from long range as Atlanta continue to dominate possession. Though, one of the things that Atlanta has struggled this season is breaking down bunkers, and that, it was kind of surprising. Well, actually, not surprising, but not surprising, the fact that they couldn't quite break through a tough Orlando City bunker. Though that all changed until the 71st minute when Peretta would score from Amada to tie the game up at 1 apiece, and that was not great marking for Orlando. I mean, some fans might blame Galese in terms of the fact that he kind of was caught in no man's land and probably should have punched that one away before Peretta was able to head it away. But I think there was really nothing he could do there, and that in many ways it was kind of Peretta, the fact that not only he times his run, but also just nobody marked him in that back post. And yeah, that was just terrible marking there for Orlando on that free kick defense and on that set piece defense, and they paid the price for it, and the game was all tied at 1 apiece. Then in the 80th minute, Martinez would blast it wide on the curler. Like, I swear, I thought Joseph Martinez was going to get on the score sheet, because Joseph Martinez is basically the father of Orlando City. You kind of would have bet your house the fact that he would have got a goal in this one, and he definitely had some chances, especially late in this one, which this is where this game started to become crazy. Like, get ready for the game to really gone peak MLS and just gone full MLS After Dark mode, because right after when Martinez missed the opportunity, Galese would deny Araujo, who was through on goal there. And then in the 82nd minute, Galese probably made one of the the most impressive save of the season, absolutely robbing Dom Dwyer, who puts a perfect curler in the top bins, and that, usually when that happens, no goalkeeper was going to save it, but somehow in some way Galese was able to not only get a fingertip onto that, but actually palms that one away to remain tied at 1 apiece. And then we get some classic Orlando and Atlanta kind of shenanigans, as Araujo basically shoved Schlegel to the ground after Araujo picked up the ball. Now, apparently Schlegel didn't want Araujo to pick up the ball, and as soon as Araujo picked up the ball, and I think maybe Schlegel said something to Araujo, and Araujo basically just shoved Schlegel to the ground. Now, I will say that Schlegel did try his best to maybe get Araujo sent off there, because, yeah, let's just say that was a theatrical kind of dive, and even John Champion kind of mentioned it too. Like, that was it was pretty clear that Schlegel was trying to shit house there, maybe get Araujo sent off there, but nevertheless, all in that sequence, Araujo only got a yellow card out of that, which I think it was fair, because again, it was pretty clear that there was nothing into that other than the fact that it was just a classic Orlando versus Atlanta kind of shenanigans in this one. Though in the first minute of stoppage time, Martinez, which struck the post as he went through on goal, and then on the other end, Pato looked like he was going to steer for Orlando, but he struck the post. So again, we went from the Galese show to the crossbar show, with both teams struck the post in a matter of seconds. And then on the other end, Moreno would puts it wide from long ranges. This game basically turned into the Texas Derby. I talked about how the Texas Derby in stoppage time was very crazy, and although this wasn't as crazy as what we saw in the Texas Derby, where pretty much everything you would expect a crazy game in stoppage time happened in the Texas Derby, this was probably the closest of being. I mean, it was end-to-end action. Both teams was chasing for that winner, but in the end, it ends in a 1-1 draw. And the shots in this one, 18 shots compared to just 3 that Orlando has, 1 shot on goal for the 4 that Atlanta has, 10 shots off target for the 1 that Orlando has, 1 shot that was blocked for the 4 that Atlanta has, and possession-wise, 61% possession compared to 39% possession that Orlando has in this game. And there is no doubt that Atlanta is going to be the more frustrated side coming out of this game. I mean, for Orlando, they had some chances. Layden probably almost stole this one, but that they're probably the happier side, because they were just pretty much bunkered for the entire game ever since they went up 1-0, and are probably very lucky the fact that Atlanta didn't have their shooting boots in this one, and that for Atlanta, as I said, they'll be very frustrated, because they were not only not good in terms of finishing and also getting denied by the post, but they just got Galese in this one, as Pedro Galese, along with the post, are probably the only reason why Atlanta United didn't get the win, and also, of course, the poor finishing from Atlanta United. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is the New York Derby between the Red Bulls versus NYCFC. Now, what's kind of interesting about this game is that NYCFC kind of didn't get off to a good start in this one. In fact, they actually looked very poor in the first half. I mean, the Red Bulls were by far the better team throughout the first 60 minutes of this game, but then NYCFC, to their credit, they kind of grew into this game, and it feels like this was one of those games where the winning team eventually grew into the game. They got the goal, and then they basically took over this game, and probably could have won more than the 1-0 scoreline that they did in this one. Now, in the 4th minute, there was a shout for a penalty from the Red Bulls faithful that was not given, as the Red Bulls were clearly on the front foot early, and they were pressing against NYCFC, which NYCFC had no answer in terms of dealing with the press, as they just turned the ball over so many times whenever the Red Bulls press. Tokens then blasted high off of a deflection before the first shot for NYCFC came, as Rodriguez hits it straight to Magno. Then there was a shout for a handball for the Red Bulls that was also not given as a penalty, before Johnson would deny Cáceres Jr. from long range, and the Red Bulls were knocking on the door. Like, it was just sustained pressure early into this game. They were by far the better team, and NYCFC, it was they were completely out of rhythm and were just getting outplay in this one. And you're also thinking it probably is going to be a matter of time before the Red Bulls get the 1-0 lead. Tokens had a chance to do so, but he hits it wide from long range before Magno on the other end puts it wide on a long range. So the possession was 67-33 in favor of the Red Bulls, which is exactly the opposite of what we thought was going to happen in this game. Like, we thought that NYCFC were going to dominate possession because, they are a possession team, while the Red Bulls are a team that tends to not like to have possession, and that, you know, I think they're also ranked in the league as one of the lowest possession in the league, because they like to not only press but also play on the transition. So I think that kind of surprised everybody, the fact that it was the other way around, where the Red Bulls were dominating the game but still able to create chances, while NYCFC they just could not get out of their own half at times. Johnson then denied Luquinhas, and on the follow-up, Nealis just puts that one high in the 37th minute before Fernandez hits it right to Johnson, and then Rodriguez fired one right to Cornell in the 44th minute of this game. And despite a dominant first half for the New York Red Bulls, it's still scoreless in this New York derby heading into the second half. And in the second half, Castellanos then tried a volley shot that puts one into the stands. I mean, you knew Tati Castellanos was going to eventually get himself into the game. I mean, he was kept quiet for the first half. That was not the case in the second half. In the 50th minute, Johnson then would shove Luquinhas to the ground after he made a simple catch. And again, this is similar to some of the shenanigans that we saw in the Atlanta versus Orlando game, where you're going to see that happen in a derby. And, you know, obviously Johnson was not appreciate of what Luquinhas did there. I think he kind of bumped into Johnson as he was making the simple catch, and Johnson was having none of it. Like, he immediately shoved him to the ground, and then he also got a yellow card because of it. Then Morales missed wide after just Castros Jr. gifted right to Rodriguez. I mean, that was just a bad turnover from the New York Red Bulls, and they were almost made to pay for that. But Johnson did deny Morgan in the 59th minute, and the game started to even up. Again, you know, as the game can continue, this is when NYCFC started to get into the game, though up to that point, the Red Bulls still had some chances to get the opening goal. Castellanos then heads it over the bar before Tavon Gray hits one straight to Cornell. And then Cornell denied Castellanos, who decided to go on his bike there. And that was actually a well-striking bicycle kick for Castellanos. And if that one went in, yeah, that's automatically the goal of the week for this week. But there was no doubt that NYCFC not only got into this game, but they were sustaining pressure against the Red Bulls for the first time in this game. And unlike how the Red Bulls had sustained pressure but could not find their finishing, NYCFC did. Because in the 69th minute, who else but Tati Castellanos scoring from Rodriguez to give NYCFC a 1-0 lead, and that goal pretty much changed the game. Like, that's when really NYCFC took control of this game, and that the Red Bulls were pretty much fading for the rest of this game. And as I said, they were now dictating this game, and the Red Bulls had lost all its momentum and just could not get any possession whatsoever. Cornell then denied Morales as he tipped that one over the post. And then on the follow-up, on the follow-up, there was a header from Catlins that was clear off the line. And then Morales had a free header that goes wide. And that, you know, there was a lot of chances for NYCFC to put this one away. But I just couldn't resist by writing, will these missed chances come back to haunt NYCFC? Because we already saw the Red Bulls miss a lot of chances early in this game and it come back to bite them. Is this going to be the same case for NYCFC, where they were trying to put this game away? Because Sean Nealis had a big opportunity in the 90th minute, but he puts it wide in the back post, and the flag actually did went up, so even if Nealis put that one in, it wouldn't have counted. And then in the 5th minute of stoppage time, Hawk actually tried to chip it over Cornell, as Cornell was way off his lines after, you know, the Red Bulls pushed everyone forward to trying to score the equalizer. And that one actually was on goal, but it was clear off the line. Though it was clear off the line right back into the path of Aber, who tried to tap it into the empty net. That didn't happen as he hits that one over the bar. But thankfully for NYCFC, despite some wasteful chances late in this one, they hold on to win 1-0 in this Hudson River Derby, as this is only the second win for NYCFC, getting a win against the New York Red Bulls at Red Bull Arena. And I didn't actually have enough room to write the stats in this one, so I'm going to look here on the notebook where I wrote down the stats of this one. The Red Bulls had 14 shots compared to 19 that NYCFC had. 4 shots on goal compared to 9 that NYCFC had. 9 shots off target compared to 5 that the Red Bulls had. 5 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that NYCFC had. And possession-wise, 65% possession compared to 35% possession that the Red Bulls has in this game. And again, like I said, you know, for NYCFC, give credit to them. Like, they ride out the storm as long as possible. And how many times we've seen before where just because you're on top in a game, at least for majority part of the start of the game, you don't put away those chances and you let a team in the game, it's gonna come back to haunt you because the other team will have belief that they can get a foothold in this one. And in this case, the Red Bulls just let NYCFC in this game way too long. Let them believe that they can get a foothold in this game. And by the time that happened, the momentum completely switched toward the blue side of New York. And yeah, New York is blue, at least for this week, with NYCFC getting a big victory against the New York Red Bulls and keep pace with the Philadelphia Union in terms of trying to chase them down for the top spot in the Eastern Conference. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is the Hell is Real derby between Columbus versus FC Cincinnati. And this was a game where this, I feel like, is something similar to the Texas derby and also El Tráfico, where this was a very typical derby kind of game where, you know, there was some good moments for both of these teams, and that there was some crazy momentum swing with the way that there's times where there's one moment where the home side is good, and then there's times where the away side was the better team. But in the end, Columbus were the more clinical side in this game, and they get the 2-0 win over their interstate rival. Now, early on, Room would rob Barrial from point-blank range. I mean, that was a big save from Eloy Room, and a big early moment, too, because if that one went in, maybe things would have been different, at least in the first 30 minutes of this game. And then Cucho hits it wide from 19 yards out. As I said, that was a typical derby start, as both of these teams were chasing for the early opener. There was a huge shout for a penalty from the Crew fans that was not given in the 12th minute before Salentano would deny Cucho from close range. And already Cucho making a big impact for the Crew, and you can see that he definitely is looking to try to score another goal, which he did, as he scored here from Zarian in the 16th minute to give the Crew a 1-0 lead. And he's also become, I believe, the 8th player in MLS history to score on his first free appearance for the club. And safe to say that if Cucho Hernandez continued this incredible form, Columbus might have just found their future number 9 and might have just find a guy that is a generational talent. I mean, you know, Columbus, we look at some of the moves that they have made, and especially with them from big money for him, they were really hoping that he is going to be the guy that not only will be a replacement for Jerzy Zardes, but maybe even better version of it. And so far, I think he's been not only worth every single penny, but looks even better than what Jerzy Zardes is, because his movement along his finishing is just absolutely unreal and just absolutely sublime. And I think it's also safe to say that, you know, he might be in the running for newcomer of the year if he continued the form that he is in right now. Because after all, didn't Chicharito won the newcomer of the year last season when he was also on fire when he came into the LAFC team? And it seems like we're seeing the same thing with Cucho Hernandez. But after that goal was scored, Lower.com Field was definitely in a party atmosphere. I mean, it was loud inside that stadium, and it feels like Columbus really ride that vibe, because they started to press hard for the second goal, and Cincinnati was just stuck in their own half. Like, it was just wave after wave of pressure that Columbus was putting against Cincinnati. But the good news for Cincy, they did ride out of it, as in the 28th minute they got their first opportunity ever since they conceded the goal, as Brenner would fires it high, which signaled the end of the Columbus Storm. Cruz then had a header that was clear off the line by Williams, and it feels like now Cincinnati is the one that has the momentum. And I probably shouldn't write the word momentum in this one, because like I said, you know, this game was a combination of El Tráfico and the Texas derby in both the Houston, Dallas, and Austin versus Dallas game, where momentum didn't exist in this one. It was just left and right at times. Dan Sanatano would deny Zarian from close range before Santos hit a thunder strike that just goes wide. And again, guess the momentum is like a clock in this one. It was just swinging back and forth in terms of the pendulum, and we had to halftime with Columbus leading 1-0. Now, in the second half, Diaz just couldn't quite tap it in the back post in the 48th minute before Sanatano would deny Zarian, and Columbus again start out the stronger side, and once again they were putting relentless pressure against Cincinnati. Like, Cincinnati was once again having the same problem as they did in the first half, not able to play that outlet ball, not able to get out of their own half. Though eventually, like what we saw at the first half, they ride out that pressure and started to create some chances. Ordenes had a chance in the 60th minute, but he had an off-balance shot that was blocked away, and then he hits one straight to Room in the 61st minute, despite the fact that he had some good space to strike that one in. And again, it feels like it's now the Crew are the one that is on the ropes. And in some way, a lot of these chances is because of bad turnover from the Columbus Crew. Like we talked about before this season, and especially last season, where there's times this year where the Crew has dropped points because they made some boneheaded play, and here they were just gifting Cincinnati chances, and there's just way too many turnover in their own half, and they were asking to get punished because of it. Brenner then hits the side netting on the volley before Diaz hits the side netting from a tight angle. And this kind of came off of a quick restart where Cincinnati just completely fell asleep. Like, they weren't aware of this quick restart, and Diaz almost made them pay because of it. There was then a brief check for a handball by Hagelin, which was not given, despite the fact that VAR chant was ringing out in that 25,000 so inside lower.com field. And like the New York Derby, again, this game feels like it was on a knife edge. Like you've had a feeling that, you know, maybe the next goal could change the outcome of this game, and that next goal eventually came in the 86th minute, but not before a penalty was given to the Crew after Nobolo handball that one. And unlike the Hagelin one, where I think that one was the right call because there wasn't really enough evidence to overturn the call, this one was pretty clear and obvious. I mean, it was pretty clear that Nobolo handballed that one in the box, which gives the penalty for the Crew. And Zairian, who has been in a goal drought in these last couple of months, he finally broke the duck and scored from the spot there to give the Crew a 2-0 victory, and that pretty much just seals the game as the Columbus Crew takes victory in the Hell is Real Derby. And the shots in this one, 17 shots for the 9 that Cincinnati has, 4 shots on goal for the 2 that Cincinnati has, 2 shots off target for the 7 that Columbus had, 6 shots that was blocked for the 5 that Cincinnati has, and possession-wise, 58% possession compared to 42% possession that Cincinnati has in this game. And when you have a game that is kind of back and forth like what we saw in this Hell is Real Derby, it is so important that that if you are able to come away with a win, you need to, of course, be clinical. And I think in this game, it is pretty clear that Columbus was just a little bit more clinical in this game compared to Cincinnati, where it wasn't a bad game for them, but they just could not able to take advantage of their chances when they had the momentum, and they dropped all 3 points in this game against Columbus. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is Nashville versus LAFC in the first ever meeting between both of these teams, and in the end, it's LAFC, of course, getting the 2-1 win against Nashville SC. Now, not only the fact that Chiellini made his debut in this game and actually started in this game and played 60 minutes, Gareth Bale also made his debut in this one coming off the bench, and I have a feeling the media is going to talk about that nonstop. Like, it feels like the media, you know, once again is fell in love with LAFC, but especially the whole Chiellini and Gareth Bale kind of discussion. And while Gareth Bale, he definitely made almost made a stunning debut where literally his first touch of the ball was just a lovely back heel pass, which oozed a lot of the fans inside Geodis Park. I mean, I know Gareth Bale might have played for the away team, but something tells me a lot of that Nashville crowd were not only supporting their team, but they were waiting to see Gareth Bale basically play in front of their eyes, and they got a chance to do so, at least for the last 20 minutes when Bale was subbed in. Though early on, in the 6th minute, the first shot of the game came from Nashville as Mule puts one right to Crapo. The possession was 70-30 in favor of LAFC, which is not a big surprise because we knew Nashville was going to try to sit back, and LAFC, knowing they're a team that likes possession, it's also unsurprising that was the outcome in the early part of this game. And again, despite all the possession that LAFC has had, they had a tough time in terms of creating much against this organized Nashville defense. And while, you know, this Nashville defense isn't as potent as we've seen in their previous 2 seasons, it is still very hard to break down when they go into a low block and decide to counter. And their counter was very good in this one. It really caused trouble for this LAFC team. Sapon had an opportunity in the 12th minute, but he heads it wide from close range before Jack Mayer had a chance in the 17th minute, also heads it wide from close range. And then Sapon had another chance, this one from a header, and it goes right to Crapo as Nashville was pressing to try to get the opener and trying to capitalize after another slow start for LAFC. And in some way, they kind of had to, because you know that if you don't capitalize after a slow start from LAFC, you could potentially be made to pay, and that's exactly what happened in this one, as really the first big opportunity for LAFC in the 27th minute. Chicho Arango would score here from Holland's head to give LAFC a 1-0 lead, and not only it's against the run of play, but you knew that the goal scorer of of the first goal shouldn't come to a big surprise. I mean, Chicho Rango is just in sizzling form right now, and he is really hunting down Tati Castellanos in terms of the Golden Boot with him. Seems like he is back in the same form he had when he came into the league, scoring pretty much every single game. And he actually had an opportunity for a second in the 31st minute, but he was denied by Willis after a lovely back heel kind of shot. But then in the 40th minute, a penalty was given to Nashville after VAR deemed that Elie pulled down Sapon in the box. And, as much as I know some LAFC fans might not be happy with that call, it's the correct decision. I mean, it was pretty clear that Elie pulled down Sapon in the box there, which Mukhtar was able to put away, though it kind of came off the post and in there, so it was kind of a little bit fortunate for Hani Mukhtar. But when Hani Mukhtar in these last couple of games has once again become the only goal scorer for Nashville SC, sometimes when you're red hot in form, you of course will have that luck on your side. And yeah, that gave Nashville the equalizer right on the stroke of halftime, and that would be the scoreline heading into the second half. Though in the second half, we won't stay tied for long, because in the 47th minute, LAFC retake the lead. It's Fuentes, the one that retakes the lead for LAFC, and he actually kind of cleans up the mistake cleans up the mess after Holland's had struck the post there. But in the 55th minute, Dax McCarty, I mean, he should have scored this one. Like, he was wide open in the back post, and I know Dax McCarty is not known to be a natural goal scorer, but he was wide open in the back post. All he had to do was just tap it in, but he puts that one wide. Holland's head then puts it wide from long range before Kellen Acosta had a chance from long range, but he puts that one wide. And then in the 72nd minute, this is when the big moment happened. Gareth Bale, of course, made his debut, and again, as soon as he made his debut, pretty much not only the whole stadium giving a standing ovation, but the cameras was out in this one. I mean, it's not very often you see in an MLS game where even the away fans are giving you a standing ovation and basically have the cameras on you, but that's what Gareth Bale is. And I also kind of feel like this is starting to feel like a very MLS 1.0 kind of vibe, where remember in the MLS 1.0, or not MLS 1.0, but more like MLS 2.0 vibe, where you have these age-old kind of superstar players from Europe coming to play in MLS and trying to create their last paycheck, and as soon as they made their debut, it feels like it, you just had to make sure you had your cameras out, because it was such a big moment to see a player with the stature of that player to come in, and this was the case for Gareth Bale. I mean, everyone, like pretty much everyone, had their cameras up, because they would definitely witness history and a new era that was about to kick off for LAFC, but also in MLS. Though in the 73rd minute, Mukhtar did try to go near post on the free kick, but only fire one into the side netting. And again, the first involvement for Gareth Bale was just a lovely back heel pass, which again, it really oozed a lot of the fans inside Nashville, including the home support. But as the time winds down, Nashville was no doubt throwing man forward in hope to try to get the equalizer. But LAFC did a good job in terms of limiting those chances. In fact, the only chances that Nashville had to tie the game up was Jack Mayer heads it wide from close range for a corner. And yeah, in the end, LAFC walked away with a 2-1 victory, and they retake the lead in terms of the Supporters' Shield standing and the Western Conference standings, overpassing Austin after Austin, of course, dropped points against FC Dallas. But the shots in this one, 13 shots apiece for both of these teams. 3 shots on goal for the 5 that LAFC had. Both teams had 6 shots off target. 4 shots that was blocked for the 2 that LAFC had. And possession-wise, both teams had 50% possession for this game. But yeah, this is kind of a game that I wonder what we're going to maybe have a rematch in the playoffs, because I feel like from some part of this game, it definitely felt like a playoff game, and that Nashville will want to get some revenge in this one. I mean, they didn't play badly in this one, but this is what LAFC does. Like, they have the talent to beat anybody, and they shown it in this one, getting the all 3 points on the road, and now back at the top of the Supporters' Shield standings. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last 3 games that happened in terms of the Sunday action of match week number 21. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is RSL versus Sporting KC in a game that was probably one of the most one-sided games we have seen this season. And, I also got to feel so bad for post-game in this game because he really stood on his head as long as possible, but in the end, he basically got completely hung out to dry because his defense decided to not show up, and also Sporting KC decided to not show up in this game. And you just also feel like as soon as RSL was able to get that breakthrough, and then there was a red card happen in this one that gave RSL a man advantage for the last 30 minutes of this game, you knew the floodgates was open, and boy did the floodgates open in this one. Now, early on in the first half, post-game would then deny Cordova, and on the same sequence, he would deny Savarino from close range. Again, already stood on his head just 9 minutes in this one with an incredible double save. Glad had a chance in the 10th minute as he heads one over the bar before post-game would deny Cordova, who was through on goal. And again, it was all RSL early in this one. They were pressing to try to get the opener. Post-game then denying Ruiz on the free kick in the 25th minute. And then 1 minute later, he would deny Savarino on the volley. And again, he basically was channeling his inner Tim Melia. And I think it's safe to say that John Postgame might be the hair for Tim Melia, because, you know, we know Tim Melia is starting to get to the twilight of his career. And that was kind of a big concern for Sporting KC fans, of the fact that who's going to replace Tim Melia, and that it's not always easy to try to replace a guy that has been just such a legend for Sporting KC and is considered probably one of the best goalkeeper of all time in MLS history. But John Postgame definitely has the case to do so, because he was channeling that, and that he's the only reason why this one is at 0-0. Like, this was just overwhelmingly in favor of RSL, and that Postgame was trying his best to keep this team in this game as long as possible, and maybe even give his team a chance to score against the run of play, which almost happened in the 38th minute as Johnny Russell blasted wide on a rare Sporting KC chance. And that's kind of the dangers that RSL has to play, because you know that Sporting KC, despite sometimes they could get completely outplayed, you know they have a dangerous man in Johnny Russell, and Russell almost did that, something similar to what he did against Minnesota, where he was kind of quiet for most of the game, but he also scored had that one crucial moment and put the ball in the back of the net, and he almost did it again in this one. Though on the other end, Savarino would hit one right to post-game in the 40th minute. The shots were 10-2 in favor of RSL, 6-1 in terms of shots on goal in favor of RSL. I mean, that just kind of show you how dominant this first half was for RSL. But painfully for the hosts, they still weren't able to get the breakthrough, and they had to settle for a goalless draw, at least heading into the second half. Though in the second half, that pressure finally paid off for the hosts, as in the 49th minute, Cordova would break through from Brody and Chang to give RSL a 1-0 lead. And then Cordova tried to score his second goal, but missed wide on a free header, as, you know, Cordova was very active in this one. And in the first half, he also had a lot of chances to give RSL the opening goal. And then in the 62nd minute, straight red was shown to Roger Espinoza after he did a studs-up challenge on Lawfulson. I mean, that was pretty obvious to be a straight red anytime when you put a studs-up challenge on an opponent. And you knew that as soon as that red card happened, yeah, this means that it could get ugly for Sporting KC, and it did. Because just 2 minutes after that red card, RSL wastes no time to take advantage of it. It's Ruiz scoring from Savarino and Meram to make it 2-0 in favor of RSL, before Savarino would get himself on the score sheet as he scored from Meram and Herrera to make it 3-0 in favor of RSL, and the floodgates was just wide open. Like, RSL was blowing Sporting KC out of the door, and it looked like it was 4-0 in favor of RSL, as Savarino would put his second goal of the game, but unfortunately the goal was disallowed for offside on the attacking sequence. And then it was almost 4-0 again on the first minute of stoppage, as postgame would deny Julio, who was 1v1 with the goalkeeper. But in the end, RSL does get the victory, and despite they probably could have won like 5 or 6-0 if it wasn't for John Postgame. They get the emphatic 3-0 victory against Sporting KC. The shots in this game, 19 shots compared to 6 that Sporting KC had. 10 shots on goal compared to 1 that Sporting KC has in this one. 5 shots off target for the 3 that SKC had. 2 shots that was blocked for the 4 that RSL had. And possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that Sporting KC has in this game. This was just a total domination by the host that, you know, they definitely needed this win, because, as I said, the wheels were starting to come off for RSL, and they desperately need 3 points to get themselves back going, and they did exactly that. But for Sporting KC, I mean, just as you thought, maybe there's some small hope that they could get themselves back into playoff contention, yeah, that hope pretty much is now gone. I mean, this was one of the worst performances, and probably the worst performance that they had this season, where they just kind of didn't bother showing up in this game, and that RSL pretty much dominated them from the get-go. But now, moving on, in terms of the next match, is the Quakes and the Dynamo, and there's a reason why. I've always been pessimistic about the Quakes, and why I've always tended to be very negative toward the Quakes, and you can definitely slate me for being negative and being very pessimistic when it comes to the Quakes and the fact that I did say I played it down, the fact that I wasn't going to be fooled by the fact that this team was going to be potentially back in playoff contention and maybe even making the playoffs after that big win against the Galaxy, because when you've seen this story so many times where the Quakes, as soon as they give you hope, they basically crushed it. And they did it again in this one against the Houston Dynamo. And again, it just feels like it's almost like kind of like the definition of insanity, where you just simply cannot have hope with this team anymore, because time and time again they're going to crush it. And in this game, where they should have won against the Dynamo and were the better team for a majority of the game, what undone them is because of the turnover that they were given to the Dynamo in this one, and also some big missed opportunity that could have got them the win in this one. Though early on, in the second minute of stoppage time, Fafa Pico went through on goal and round the keeper, but could not tap it in. And already early on, there was some early concern for that Quakes backline, because there was just way too many sloppy turnover that they were giving to the Dynamo, which would be a huge storyline throughout the entire part of this game. Though Ibobasi missed wide on the free kick in the 10th minute before Clark denied Espinoza in the back post, and the Quakes kind of sort of woke up a little bit after just a slow start to this game and kind of realized that, yeah, they were the better team coming into this one, and they're the favorites, and they should get the 3 points. Though Hadabi hit one over the bar from close range in the 15th minute before Kikanovic missed wide in the back post. Then Clark denied Espinoza on the free kick from 29 yards out. By the way, Steve Clark was another guy that was huge in this one for the Dynamo, and was also one of the reasons why the Dynamo got the win, because he definitely was on his game and was kind of showing his vintage Steve Clark kind of form that he had during the days with the Portland Timbers, when we know that when he's on his game, he's one of the best, if not the best, goalkeeper in this league. But the Quakes were knocking on the door, but can they put one past Steve Clark, who seems like he was on the peak of his game? And they tried to do so in the 41st minute, but Clark was able to deny Marie from long range, and we stay scoreless heading into the second half. Now, in the second half, Dorsey hits the post on the right side, and surprise, surprise, it came off of a turnover for the Quakes that allow a chance for the Dynamo to get the lead, and there was no doubt that they were on the front foot, as it's another slow start from the Quakes coming out of the gate, especially with those sloppy turnover and not doing much going forward on the attack. Herrera then crossed it wide from close range in the 50th minute, but then in the 53rd minute, Jackson Yule would score to give the Quakes a 1-0 lead after a lovely volley that Yule basically scored there. And originally this kind of came because of the fact that Tommy Thompson kind of had a looping header that, it looked like it was going to go wide, but it struck the post, and then just on the rebound, Yule was able to hit it first time and basically blast it in. I mean, it's not the first time we've seen Jackson Yule able to score that. It seems like he loved to score volley goal, but yeah, he gives the Quakes a 1-0 lead. It was almost 2-0 as Espinoza was denied by Clark in the 60th minute. Though, despite the fact that you think that maybe the Quakes were going to push to get that second goal, didn't happen. In fact, the Dynamo started to regain the momentum of this game, and again, the Quakes being sloppy in the attack, turning the ball over in the midfield, keep giving the Dynamo chances to potentially work on a short field, and they took advantage of one in the 72nd minute as Sebastian Ferreira would score from Pico to make it get 1-1 in this one. And yeah, this was a gift from Jackson Yule. Like, he literally played it right into the path of Fafa Pico. And you know the old saying that you can only play fire until it burns you? It burns the Quakes. With them playing so much fire, with them keep turning the ball away in their own half, and you just had a sense that one of them is going to be punished, and that was the case in this one. Though in the 75th minute, Ibobasi had a tapped in from 5 yards out, but somehow in some way it was clear off the line by Tim Parker. And while that was a great clearance for Tim Parker, you gotta question how Ebobisse did not put that one away. And as much as Ebobisse has had a great season for the Quakes, this was not one of his best games, and that I have seen this before, where Ebobisse has had some very easy chances that he misses, and maybe this is the reason why he isn't considered to be on the national team. I mean, as much as there's been talks of Ebobisse maybe potentially could be one of the answer in terms of the number 9 problem that the U.S. men's national team has. Yeah, seeing these missed opportunity and these tapped in being missed is not going to help his cause in terms of, so maybe be one of the candidate to be the number 9 for the U.S. men's national team. And to make that extra painful, literally on the other end, Houston got the lead. It's Offerson scoring from Quintero to give the Dynamo a 2-1 lead. And not only the fact that was a dig punch for the Quakes, where they came oh so close from one end only to concede on the other. But guess what? It came off of a turnover. Now, as the time winds down, the Quakes did try to push for the equalizer as Houston was looking to seize out a huge 3 points on the road. Remember, this team have only won twice this season on the road, and the road has never been kind to the Dynamo. Like, you know, there's a reason why Dynamo fans will always say whenever they play on the road, it's an automatic L because of the amount of time they don't get road points. But they look like they were going to get a rare road win in this one. Though Clark did have to deny Marie from close range in the 87th minute. While Paul Marie was very active on the attacking end, he was also one of the big culprit in terms of the defensive area. Though I wouldn't just solely blame him for some of these bad turnover. I mean, it was the whole back line that was making turnover after turnover in their own end, and especially in that midfield where it was absolutely horrendous throughout this one. Though Beeson did had a chance in the 88th minute, but he heads it wide from close range. And despite the fact that the referee kind of gifted the Quakes a couple of minutes past the stoppage time, the Quakes cannot channel their inner Goonies magic, and in the end, they fall 2-1 against the Houston Dynamo and only suffer for their second loss of the season, first one since losing on opening day against the New York Red Bulls. As the shots in this one, 16 shots for the 13 that the Dynamo has, 4 shots on goal for the 6 that the Quakes had, 8 shots off target for the 5 that the Dynamo has, 2 shots that was blocked for the 4 that the Dynamo has, and possession-wise, 51% possession compared to 49% possession that the Houston Dynamo has in this game. And if I hear anyone say that this team can potentially get themselves back into playoff contention after maybe a couple of wins to give the team hoped up, yeah, I know those fans are probably haven't been in the shoes of me, where again it just feels like it's a cycle that this Quakes team has been stuck on for basically these past decades or so, where they can give you some hopes up, maybe things are going to improve, but then immediately they do this where they lose to a game where they should be able to win against an inferior opponent, and then I won't be surprised they're going to give me hope again in a couple of weeks. And like I said, I'm not falling for it. I am not falling for it. I didn't fall for it in the last game against the Galaxy. I even downplayed it, the fact that I still don't think this team is not going to make the playoffs. And I'll repeat it again every single time, whether the Quakes win or not. This team's not making the playoffs. You do not make the playoffs if you lose to the Houston Dynamo at home, and you especially don't make the playoffs if you have a defense that is just absolutely horrendous and is by far the worst defensive team in the league, both in terms of stats and also in terms of how they play game in and game out. But moving on, in terms of the last match on this board, is the Portland Timbers versus the Vancouver Whitecaps in a game that ended in a 1-1 draw. Though, you know, despite the fact that usually when a game ended in a draw where the away team kind of had to hold on to get a draw out of this game, I don't think the Whitecaps will be that pleased coming out of this game with a draw, and obviously especially the Timbers won't be happy despite coming back, because they had some chances late to really get the win in this one. But, you know, both of these teams had a chance to get themselves above the red line, with one of these teams getting the win, getting themselves above the red line, and both of them can't do it and stay below the red line after getting a 1-1 draw. Now, early on, Moreno had a chance for the Timbers in the 11th minute, but he puts one right to Bomer. By the way, Isaac Bomer, he has started to become a rising star for those Whitecaps team, and he's starting to kind of almost channeling his inner Thomas Hassel, with the way that, you know, when Thomas Hassel came into the league and he turns out to be an overnight sensation during the MLS Back tournament, this is the same case for Isaac Bomer. He had a a spectacular game in this one. And don't be surprised that maybe there could be some competition between him and Hassel when Thomas Hassel is back from his injury. The game feel wide open early in this one as both teams was trying to counter against each other. Again, this was a game where if there's one thing in terms of tactically I can say that could happen in this one, is that it could be a track meet, because both of these teams love to counter. It's their bread and butter, and it's not surprised that early in this game it was very open as both of these teams was just kind of running each other with their fast counter attack. Though there was not much real chances due to the fact that there was a lack of final third quality from both teams, even when they're trying to go on the counter. I mean, the counter, they did a good job in terms of build-up of it, but when it gets to the final third, that's when it goes dark for both of these teams. Though Blackman did have Vancouver's first shot that goes into the Timbers Army stands, and then Bulmer was able to deny Paredes from long range, and that was a big save, because just 9 minutes later, Vancouver takes the lead. It's Brian White scoring from Raposo and goal to give the Whitecaps a 1-0 lead, though that lead looked like it was short-lived after Bravo flashed on just wide from long range. And then on the other end, Ivasic had to deny to Home from 14 yards out, and we head to halftime with the Whitecaps leading 1-0 against the Timbers. Now in the second half, Nishgoda just hits one over the far from the doorstep of goal, and that's one that you usually do not see Yaroslav Nishgoda miss, at least in these last couple of games. Like, he is one of the most informed number 9 in the league, and you would have bet the fact that he would have put that one away, albeit it wasn't easy for him to try to strike that one in even from close range. Zubaric then puts it over the bar, as I thought the Timbers were on the front foot and was pressing for the equalizer, but the chances kind of dried up because, the Whitecaps realized that, why don't we just kind of decide to sit back and allow the Timbers have all the possession, because, for a while we have seen before where, this is a Timbers side that is purely driven to play counterattack. So why not the key ways to stop this Timbers team is just kind of give them all the possession and see if they can break down their opponent. And while the Timbers, at least in these last couple of years, have done a better job in terms of it, this was not the case in this one, because they once again had a lot of problem in terms of really creating any chances whenever they had most of the ball. Though I will say that they did still create some chances, and some of those chances was really down to the fact that the Whitecaps were turning the ball away from dangerous area. Like, there was times where it could have been costly for the Whitecaps, and it got to a point where I had to write, the Whitecaps got to watch out for those turnover. But in the 62nd minute, Blanco did puts it over the bar from long range before Boner denying Bravo from close range in the 76th minute. I mean, Bravo really hits that one hard, but Boner making a big save there. And again, he was channeling his Thomas Hassel MLS's back tournament form, where a couple of weeks ago you probably have never heard of this kid, and now he has really becoming a guy that could have a lot of potential if he continues the performance that he has been in these first 2 games. But I also felt like it was all hands on deck for the Whitecaps, because they started to slip deeper and deeper into this game. And as much as I know that I said that the Timbers had trouble in terms of breaking down the Whitecaps on the bunker, yeah, it's not usually a good recipe of you just continue to sit deeper and deeper at a time where you're just simply parking the bus, because the opposition eventually going to throw man forward, and eventually that overwhelming pressure was going to get to the visitor. And indeed that was the case, because just 1 minute after I wrote that, penalty was given to the Timbers after Blackman brought down Mora in the box. And yeah, that was a very, very clumsy challenge there from Blackman. Basically shoved Mora down in the box, which give the penalty for the Timbers, and Mora basically buries that one to tie the game up at 1 apiece. But you knew that the Timbers were not just going to satisfy for the draw. Like, they smell blood. They looking for the winner, and they continue to push man forward to do so. Though I also thought that this might have just played in the hands of the Whitecaps, because again, that's what the Whitecaps want to do. They want the Timbers to continue to have the possession, continue to push man forward, and leave some space at the back. And we know the Whitecaps, a team that has a lot of fast player that can go on the transition. And then near the end of this game, the crowd basically chant F you to the ref, because Blanco got a yellow card for dissent. I mean, yeah, I get that Sebastian Blanco is a fan favorite, and I get that they were kind of frustrated the fact that Blanco didn't get a call in his favor after it looked like he was shoved down, and Blanco definitely said some choice words toward the referee and slammed the turf, as he was very upset after he wasn't getting the call. But yeah, when you react like that, it's always going to be a yellow card. And again, certainly the crowd had the same reaction toward Blanco. They were definitely very salty about that moment and started to chant that. But in the third minute of stoppage time, the Whitecaps actually were the one that had the last chance, as Ivic denied White in the near post. But in the end, it ends in a 1-1 draw in the forgotten Cascadia derby. And the shots in this one, 17 shots compared to 14 that the Whitecaps had, 7 shots on goal for the 5 that the Timbers had. Both teams had 6 shots off target, 6 shots that was blocked for the 1 that the Whitecaps had, and possession-wise, 66% possession compared to the 34% possession that the Whitecaps has in this game. And like I said, for the Timbers, this is a very frustrating result, because you just thought that, with these last couple of games, with them getting the Cascadia derby win and in a good form and really pushing themselves up the standings and back into playoff contention, that they can easily get all 3 points against the Whitecaps. But give the Whitecaps credit. I mean, they held their ground in this one, and although I know they also will be easily frustrated because of them giving up a late goal, they'll be happy the fact that they got to roll points against a team that has been on a relatively hot form, and they also stay in that conversation in terms of making the playoffs in the Western Conference. I mean, right now the West is just so tight right now, and it remains tight after this match week, where I think third all the way down to ninth is still only separated by just 7 points. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these 3 games and also the 4 other games I've just mentioned on the other board. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.